What's up, everybody? Once again, it is I, James, coming to you from the Nerdy Mewzings Podcast studio. Today, I am very excited to be joined by Miss Emily of Learn Comics with Pancake on YouTube. How you doing, Emily?
Great. Thank you so much for having me. This is like amazing to be invited on. So thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Like, as soon as I saw your YouTube channel and what you were doing, I wanted to make sure to have you on the podcast. So I got to thank you for actually saying yes.
Well, I think it was Todd McFarlane said, say yes to everything.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's what I'm going with. Just say yes unless it's a really bad idea.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I always try to give people, the link to the YouTube. If they haven't seen the podcast, I want to make sure that people see what it's about and see that we have a fun time and it's nice and laid back. But you'd be surprised how many, messages I send out that are unresponded to, or they just never want to do it. But that's all good. Maybe get a little more of a reputation and get more content out and more people will be comfortable coming on. But I wanted to ask you, so I'm going to make a lot of assumptions, but I'm assuming, especially, it's not too hard to do the detective work because your bookshelf behind you has some awesome trade paperbacks on it. Have you been into comics for quite some time?
Well, actually, no. I'm basically like a baby when it comes to comics. For some reason, on New Year's Day of this year, I was like, I really just want to go on YouTube and get myself back into drawing.
Okay.
And a video by David Finch popped up about the Loomis method, right?
Yes.
And I remember about 15 years ago, back in uni, when everybody was like, the Loomis method is the method.
That was like the thing, yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, maybe I should give that a go. So I clicked on the link. And I feel like I just went on this journey of so much amazing information about art that I didn't really know about before. And it's just been like a whirlwind since then,
Yeah.
Because I'd only ever read Hush before January 1st of this year.
Classic Jim Lee.
Yeah, exactly. So it's been on my shelf since I think 2011 when I was in uni, and I never thought there was other comic books like that. I know it sounds really a bit silly, but I was like, this is really cool.
Yeah.
But I never sought out more, and I feel like I've got a lot of catching up to do. So
well, that's an awesome position to be in. That's actually really cool. Yeah. I'm really excited for you because there's so much cool stuff people can recommend for you to check out. And man, I'm jealous of that because I've been into comics since I was probably I would say more serious since I was 13. So it's a long time. I'm up there in years. So I've been into comics for a very long time. And, I really envy that because there's so much. It's almost like when you discover a TV show that has 4 seasons out and you've never watched it and you get to binge it and discover all this awesome stuff, right?
Yeah, so that's exactly what it feels like. It feels like every day is Christmas because I get to see so much art that is just absolutely wonderful. Everybody else has known about this for 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, have you seen this? This is so cool. And everybody's like, yeah, I've read that 15 years ago.
Yeah, we just take it for granted. Yeah.
Yeah.
So rewinding a little bit, so do you have a background in art? Was that something that you were interested in and kind of pursued prior to getting into comics?
Yeah, so I went to university for animation and became an animator after that for, I think, 9 years. And then I took a career break and joined the police, which was sort of
Now we thought my
Really
path was interesting. We were talking before before we started. Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I joined the police and was a police officer for more years than I should have been. And
Okay.
I ended up getting injured on the job, and hence why January 1st, instead of working the night shift, I was at home and I was really bored out of my brains and decided to click on YouTube and just inundated with this brand new, sparkly, awesome world. So,
Yeah.
so I went on this wild journey of doing art but not enjoying it, and then getting a real job, you know, but found that wasn't, I'm too creatively minded for such a
Right.
strict environment, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, now I'm sort of thinking of what will my next career trajectory be? And, you know, maybe I can make this YouTube thing a thing, you know, rather than
Yeah.
just, I like to talk about comics and like hope that somebody else enjoys what else I have to say, you know?
Well, it's certainly area of YouTube that while there are a lot of artists on there in art channels, there still isn't a ton. It's not like it's oversaturated, especially when it comes to instructional content. And I find what's really unique about your channel is these studies and breakdowns you're doing of the different artists. Like, not too many people are out there doing that. So I think that's a real, what would they say, a niche thing that you're doing, to where you're breaking down Jim Lee and you're breaking down Joe Madureira and all these people. And I dig it because I'm into all those artists, and seeing somebody be able to put into words what they're doing on the page with the artwork has really been cool.
Yeah. So I like I say, I got into watching David Finch, and I must have binge watched all of his live episodes in the space of 2 months.
Oh, wow.
Just watching them all the time. And then I had nothing else to watch. And I was like, oh, well, this is sad. So I guess I'll just draw my own things and come up with my own sort of study plan.
Yeah.
And then, you know, like work wasn't like panning out, and that like they wouldn't have let me go on YouTube because, you know, security
Exactly.
reasons.
Yep.
So I was like, I'm going to try and do this wild thing where hopefully people will get over my accent and be able to understand what I'm saying. And
No,
maybe,
your accent's great. That adds to it.
yeah, surprisingly, some people have been like, you have a very soothing voice. And I'm like, I would never have said that it was soothing, but okay,
you,
sure.
You sound, any instructor with an accent automatically 10 points for sounding very smart too, right? Like,
Yeah,
people
right?
make that association with an accent, and a professor, like
Yeah.
a teacher of art, and you have the accent, it works out great.
Yeah, so maybe if, you know, they realize that I'm British, they'll be like, oh, she must be smart. But little do they know.
We won't tell them. It'll be the secret.
Yeah, just me,
wait.
you, and the podcast people that, that
Yeah.
listen and watch.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically, I wanted to create more of that content that he put out, you know, where he was breaking down things in a way that anybody could understand. And that's basically my mission, is if I can learn this, then I can tell somebody, I think this is how you do it. And if they understand, then I've done my job, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And you're putting out content very regularly, which is great. Like, I know that's like always the struggle. Like, you'll find a content creator that you like, and you're watching, kind of like what you were saying with David's videos. Like, you watched pretty much all of them, and now you're like, oh, I need
Yeah.
more, right? But you know, putting the videos out every week and everything, like it's such a you get people waiting and looking forward to seeing the next video pop up. So I think that's really important. How do you balance that? Like I know what goes into me doing this with the podcast and editing the videos and uploading and having everything scheduled, ready to go. Like, are you pretty good about staying on top of that? Are you trying to get a little backlog of content going and that type of thing? Or are you just flying by the seat of your pants at the moment?
It is unfortunately mostly flying by the seat of my pants. That's mainly because, though, I'll find an artist that I want to do a series on, and I just don't shut up. I just keep on finding things that I really love about them, and the script gets longer and longer and longer, and then the edit becomes longer and longer and longer. So
yeah, that's the trade-off, right? Like it's good to have a lot of content, but then you have to pare that content down and, you know, splice it however you're going to, whether you're going to make it into one video or multiple videos. And people don't realize how much time editing takes.
oh yeah, it takes so long because I do like the basic cut where I just put in the clips of me, like make it all into one, and then I have to go through it again, but put in the things behind, like my clip. That what I'm saying, like what I'm talking about, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's that part because it's often about 2 weeks after I've wrote the script, and I'm like, what was it that I was thinking about when I wrote that and when I said that? I don't remember. Like there was probably some reasoning, but I don't know what it was.
Well, I think that's what we all struggle with, right? Especially like me, I'm trying to get ahead of things because I am busy with my other job. And so when I'm on here, it's like I'm trying to stay like several episodes ahead. And I've got a little bit of a system going where I'm getting them, you know, like after today, after we record this, I'll go in and edit it and have it ready, have it uploaded, scheduled to go out. And you know, right now this will put me like 5 episodes ahead, so I'm pretty excited about that. But I know if I let myself slack a little bit, it can be easy to fall behind and then be scrambling to have a guest for a certain week. And so the goal is to not end up in that place. So I think for you, like having all this content and even though it's hard to wade through it all and get it done, like you're getting out ahead of it. And it sounds like talking too much about it isn't necessarily a problem because you're not short for ideas of content to put out.
Yeah, that is true. Like I have a whole list of artists that I'd love to cover. It's just sort of picking apart what it is that I'm saying and whether do people want to know that, or is it just something that I've seen, like a special effect or a building or something like that, and do people want to know about that, or is that just me needing answers to questions that I pick up along my way? So it's mostly just I've got to sort of make it as interesting as possible, but I'm not quite sure where the levels are of is this interesting or is this not interesting. So I just end up putting it all in most of the time because if I find it interesting, somebody else might find it interesting.
Well, that's the thing. Like one person might not find that particular thing interesting, but then 10 others might, and vice versa. So it's cool that you're just kind of putting it all out there, and then the video is going to resonate with somebody, right?
Exactly. So, you know, I can't stop myself. So we'll just see how it goes, I guess.
So when you were in animation, like, I don't think people realize how difficult that can be, like how much goes into that, like drawing your keyframes and all the in-between stuff. And like when you were working in animation, I assume a lot of it was digital. Was it digitally done at that time?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had a client that wanted traditional 2D. It was mostly like 2D but digital, or 3D
Yeah.
and obviously digital.
Right.
Some VFX and compositing, things like that. So it was mostly just, if the client wants it, you have to figure out how to do it. And
hmm
clients quite often think they know what they want, but
Yes.
they don't. And
They
they won't
don't.
know that it's not that until they've seen several different versions.
Yes, that's how it works. Like people don't realize. My wife was a graphic designer for a really long time. That was her previous career, and yeah, I totally know what you're talking about. And I used to do some web design, and in the client, yeah, a lot of times they have this idea of something they want or a picture in their head, and then you actually put that into reality for them, and then they're like, wait, no, that's not what I was picturing. And you're like, well, you kind of have certain limitations and things, how this actually works versus what you're seeing in your mind.
Yeah.
That can always be difficult to match what they're picturing.
Yeah. And quite typically, they always want it at a fairly cheap price, but
Yeah.
there's no such thing as a cheap price with good animation.
Yeah. It
So
reminds me of that meme where it's like the the client's budget, where it's like the part of it's a stick drawing and the rest is the finished piece.
yeah, like the horse where it looks really
Yeah.
beautiful and then it ends up with just twigs at the back.
Yeah, it's too accurate, unfortunately.
Yeah. So I think
So
that
yeah,
was
go
like
ahead. Go
sort
ahead.
of what pushed me into, well, I'll just get a normal job, because then I won't have to deal with, well, I want it 2 pixels to the left, or the flame
Yeah.
needs to be more fiery. Do you know what I mean? It's completely stupid comments.
Yeah.
But then you deal with the general public and you become a different person. So
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
So we got to talk about, who are some of your favorite artists? You've discovered this, basically, like you said, you're a baby in this whole new world of comics and just being inundated with all these wonderful artists that a lot of us, have been aware of for many years, but you get to come into it with fresh eyes and look at everything. Like, who are some of your standouts? Could you pick a top 3 if you really thought about it? I know top 3 is hard
Ooh.
because there's so many.
that is rough. A top 3.
You don't have to put them in order.
Okay. It would probably be Jim Lee. This is in no order.
Yeah, no order.
David Finch. And I want to say Joe Mad, but I also really like Adam Kubert.
Yeah,
So-
Adam's awesome.
Mm,
Yeah, very
So-
underrated too, I find.
exactly.
Yeah.
His Ultimate X-Men, where the first 2 pages are like this massive spread
Mhm.
of this city street, and it's just it blew my mind. I was like, how in the heck did he come up with that and then put it to paper? That's
Yeah.
that's bonkers. That's awesome. So I
Yeah,
think,
he's truly a master.
yeah. So I think that would probably be my top 3. I
And
think,
they probably change
yeah,
because you discover somebody else and then that might bump somebody.
yeah. Like, I didn't know who Joe Mad was until about a month ago, and there was always this one person on my YouTube videos that was like, you need to do one on Joe Mad. Like, every video I put out, you need to do one on Joe Mad. So I was like, okay, right, I will go and have a look and see what this Joe Mad person is all about. And
Yeah.
I clicked on Inhuman, and my mind just did that, like, zoom forward, and just was completely amazed. So I was like, yeah, Joe Mad has to be next.
Yeah,
It has
Joe
to be
Mad's
next.
Joe Mad's the man. Yeah. Yeah. How far back have you gone in his career? Have you gone back to any of his old, like, Uncanny X-Men stuff that he did? Or because Inhuman's a little more modern as far as his work. Like, have you looked at any of his Battle Chaser stuff?
I've had a look at his Uncanny X-Men because that was on Marvel Unlimited. So I've had a look at that. But I was like, because I saw Inhuman first, I was always comparing it. And I was like, this doesn't seem like the same person almost.
Yeah.
It seems totally wildly different. So,
yeah, his style evolved a lot.
yeah, which I think is like a lesson that I definitely need to accept for myself, that your style will change and evolve, because I'm so like precious about when I do studies in my sketchbook and when I draw, I'm like, is this what my style is? Do you know what I mean?
Oh, I totally know what you mean. I don't even know that I have a style. It's funny. Like I keep hearing like about styles, and then I look at my own work and I'm like, I guess I could see some influences on certain things, but I don't really consider like that I have a style at this point. So
yeah,
I don't know, like, how do you develop a style? I guess it's just a journey, right?
yeah, that's what I've sort of come to the conclusion of, is that it will change, and that is okay. You just need to accept the flow of a style change. Because I was like, well, I really want to do like a little series of something, but every time I drew the same character, it looked sort of either like David Finch or Mark Silvestri or Joe Mad, whoever it was that I was studying at the time. It would sort of like just seep into my being. And
learning through osmosis.
So everybody that I studied, I just become like a poor man's version of that comic artist.
Yeah.
So
that's not a bad thing, though. I think it's just all part of the process.
Yeah, I think so. And like I said, I am such a baby to all this stuff. So I've got so much to catch up on and to learn about and to read. I'm just every day, I'm like, this is awesome. This is amazing.
Well, if you haven't seen Battle Chasers, that's got to go to the top of your list, because that's like prime Joe Madureira, his own creator-owned series that he did back in the day, and it's just phenomenal.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I will.
Yeah. It's like it showcases like his style like crazy. I mean, it's just him going wild with all his own ideas and his characters and everything, and it's so cool.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I will definitely check out that one then. That sounds great.
See, I'm just like the people commenting on the videos. Now you got to check this out.
Yeah, and so I put up like a straw poll of like, what kind of artists would people want to see me sort of dissect, and I think the second most voted one was Jim Lee, other than X-Men. So I was like, but I've just done Jim Lee, so unless that is what people want, but maybe I'll sneak in Joe Mad and Battle Chasers and hope it gets
Put a little
voted
asterisks on there related to this video. Yeah, delving back into Joe Mad stuff. If you had any artists that this is going to be interesting. Are you open to dissecting artists that maybe aren't necessarily stylistically accepted, or maybe they have a style that people consider weird or a style that people don't like? Are you going to be breaking down people like that? So for instance, like a lot of people love Todd McFarlane.
Yeah.
But stylistically, like if we're talking about anatomical correctness and things like this, maybe some things go apart a little bit, right? But there's something appealing and catchy about his artwork that a lot of people, like especially those of us that came up in the 90s with comics during the Image era and everything, and Spawn and his work prior to that on Spider-Man, like, I could see that being an interesting thing to do, because it's like we're trying to learn how to draw, but we're also looking at how somebody can have that foundation and then push their style to the limits, like almost to the point of something breaking, but somehow it still works.
Yeah, I would absolutely love to do one on Todd. Specifically his Spawn, because I haven't read his Spider-Man yet. I know that is bad, and it is on my reading list.
But it's not, people can't be mad at you because you're just now getting into it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I hope so. So, yeah, I've read, I've read all of his beginning issues of Spawn where it then turns over to Greg Capullo.
Yeah, Capullo's amazing too.
Yeah, he takes Todd's style and sort of makes it a bit more contained, I think.
Yep.
Whereas Todd can draw the weirdest and funkiest male faces that I've ever seen. Like, they just look grotesque in like a great way. But his female faces, they are something else.
Yes. You're being kind.
Yes.
There's something else. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, so
but
to answer your question,
it works, right? And it like got him to where he is. It's kind of amazing. Like, and it's kind of like what we were talking about earlier with like people finding something in one of your videos that resonates with them. Like, that's how it is with artistic styles too. Is 10 people could hate that, and then like 1,000 people could love it. Obviously, he's not short on success in his career. So
that's true. That's true. I do really love how he sort of pushes the boundaries, if that makes sense. Everything that he does, he pushed the boundaries. That the rendering, the anatomy, the faces, the expressions. It was all pushed to, I would say, beyond, anatomically correct and things like that.
Yes, definitely.
But because he's so confident with it, it just works. And I think that's probably the key to that kind of style, where if you're confident in what you do, then it will be okay.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Definitely. Well, you look at somebody like, we're going to be giving you way too many ideas of who to delve into, but somebody like Jack Kirby. Are you familiar with who that is?
I've heard of him. I know he's like one
Jack
of the beginning.
Yeah, he's like, they call him the king of comics, right? And he has this very funky art style.
Okay.
And to the point where if you are somebody who, is formally trained in art, or like you're more into correct anatomy and things, like for the longest time, I didn't like Jack Kirby's work. And then I hit a point in my art journey where I was like, this guy's actually brilliant. He's doing like an interpretation. He's doing like, I don't know if you would call it impressionism or abstract type of art. But then what's interesting about him is his work didn't always look like that. So you go back to the 1940s when he was first working, and it's all like proper structure, proper anatomy. The faces look normal, and you're like, oh, he can actually draw correctly. He chose to switch his style to this. And it's just, it's pretty phenomenal when you realize, you have that realization like, oh, he mastered it to the point that now he can start breaking things and doing all this funky stuff.
Exactly. I think that's sort of a really good saying, is learn the rules and then break the rules. Does that make sense?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, Jack the King Kirby. We're going to be doing an episode about him coming up. He's a legend for sure. But I'm right there with you. Like for me, when we talk about the top people like Jim Lee, David Finch, Greg Capullo, I like a lot of. One of my favorites, like my modern favorite artist, is Ryan Ottley. Are you familiar with his work?
Yes. I believe
so Ryan's stuff.
Yes, Ryan. Yeah, I always get Ryan Ottley and Ryan Stegman mixed up, but Ottley did Spider-Man and Stegman's doing X-Men. Right.
Yeah, Stegman's doing X-Men now, but Stegman did a lot of Spider-Man stuff too, because their styles are just kind of suited for it. So Yeah, I actually knew both of them before they broke in. So I used to chat with them online, and I actually created Ryan Stegman's first website for him, like before he broke in and went pro and all of that. So he actually paid me in pages of original art. Was Ryan Stegman? He's like, "Can I pay you in original art?" I'm like, "Heck yeah!" So I have a lot of original pages of his first work he did for Marvel and stuff.
That is absolutely wild. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
You want to talk about a style change. Like you can see some of his essence in the old work, but he evolved so much.
Oh,
It's crazy
really?
to see.
Huh. Yeah, I think they're on my list of artists to sort of A, read, and then B, do a big study series on. So it'd be really good to sort of
Yeah.
see that style change over time.
Yeah. Definitely, I'm sure everybody has told you got to check out Invincible
Everybody,
cuz yeah,
everybody.
Otley did like a crazy like 120 some issue run that he drew and penciled and inked most of. So he did have another inker on there, but majority of the time he was on the book, he penciled and inked his own work, and it's just phenomenal. Like literally some of the best work of his career.
Wow, that's wild. Yeah, I will absolutely check it out. I'm currently on Kirkman's Walking Dead, so once I finish that, I'll continue my Kirkman marathon and hop over to Invincible.
Yeah. Yeah, Invincible, definitely one of the all-time greats. Yeah, I can't recommend it enough. In Ryan's style, it's like it walks this line between proper anatomy but then exaggeration, and it just works. Like you can see a lot of like anime influence in some of the dynamics and the shots he chooses, and just the but then you're like, oh, but the anatomy is correct too. Like he's exaggerating things, but it all works. So it's very neat to see.
Yeah, I think it always goes back to that. If you know how to do it properly, then you know how to exaggerate things and make things funky, but still looking
Yeah.
great, if that makes sense. So I think that's the dream, is to understand everything and then break everything.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because I get ahead of myself and I want to jump to certain things, but it always goes back to the basics, right? Like,
Exactly.
can you draw a cylinder? Can you draw a sphere? Like, and everybody wants to jump ahead, but it's like, no, it always comes back to that. No matter what artist I talk to, like, I recently did a course with Ryan Benjamin, who's another
Oh, yes.
phenomenal artist and a very good instructor. And I did one of his online courses, and it's always like, you're having trouble with a certain angle. Okay, break it down to a sphere, this, that. It's all these anatomy books, all these how to draw books I have on my shelf. They all say that. Like it's in the first chapter, like start here, don't jump ahead. But we always want to get ahead of ourselves, right?
Yeah, it's like, who wants to learn how to draw a circle? Like, show me the
Yeah,
cool stuff. And then we skip
exactly.
past that every time, and it always comes back. Cubes,
Now with
tubes,
your
and circles.
videos, it does. With your videos, you're definitely like showing people the whether you're intending to or not, through the breaking down of the artist's work, you are showing them that underlying structure and the process more. So that's something that I think having the eye for that and being able to do that and showing people that, hey, it all really breaks down to this in the end. I think that's going to be helpful for aspiring artists watching your videos.
I hope so. I want to sort of try and give people this power to do it for themselves. You know, if I can do it, anybody can do it. Because, you know, like they're just total baby to this world. But if you can just
Yeah.
simplify it down to the base point and then build it up from there, then that's the trick to do it. Especially with things like hair. Like everybody
Yeah.
struggles with
Hair is
hair.
tricky.
But if you break it down to the base and then see if there's any patterns or any repetitions, you know, what does the artist do in every panel with that character? That this is the type of thought process that I do when I come up with these videos is I'll take a section and then go through each panel and see if there's like patterns, similarities, things they do or don't do, things like that. So I'm hoping I'm going to give people the confidence to do it themselves, hopefully.
How much do you feel that your training, your career in animation, your understanding of, obviously you have a deep understanding of drawing in order to be an animator, coming into comic art with those eyes, do you think that's definitely been an asset to you in being able to see what they're doing and break these things down and actually put them into words?
It's hard to say really, because with animation, everything's always moving. So, you know, you have the principles of animation that are sometimes there in comics, but it's mostly how can I make a still out of this thing that I could do in After Effects in 5 seconds, but how can I draw it from my mind, you know? So I think sort of the question and answer part of me is just always been in me. Do you know what I mean? I'm always like, why is like that? Or why do people do that thing? So I think if you just ask questions, then you'll find the answers, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of people don't realize that a lot of comic artists are influenced by animation. Like I remember when Ryan Stegman was helping me with drawing, and he would look at my work, or we would get on Skype back in the day, and we would draw together and have our webcam on what we were working, and he would give me advice, and he was always recommending certain animation books. You know, I have the Disney one, like the huge one about animation. There's a couple other ones that he recommended, and that he's heavily drawn from that with his work. I think there's something to be able to capture that movement and the bounce of the character and giving life to the character that is more taught in animation than when people are getting into comic art. I think that can be kind of a missing piece. So I definitely think that a lot of the greats have studied animation. I know Jack Kirby did animation for a period of time, so there's got to be some kind of connection there.
Yeah, I agree. It's thinking about the weight behind whatever action it is that they're doing. You know, things like combat and fighting and different body types, you know, things like that. That sort of does trickle down from animation, where you need to think about, well, like what I loved about Jim Lee actually is that every time people were just standing, everybody would be standing differently. So he would think about this like weight and personality, and that is something that I think comes more from animation, people that have studied that type of work, because you always have to consider that. Whereas when it comes to comic art, it's like you need to be able to draw anatomy, so you just draw somebody stood up. You don't think about personality and the weight of the person and how that bears down on every single thing that they do.
Yeah, this is true. Yeah, I was just thinking about J. Scott Campbell too. He's another that was heavily influenced by like Disney animation and stuff, and you can really see that carry over into his work, like the movement on the page and the weight and the personality of the characters. Like it's definitely a common theme with the people that have the animation background. I think they have a little bit of a leg up in conveying a lot of that stuff. So you're kind of already set up for success here if you want to continue pursuing this.
Well, here's the hope. And I mean, that's the plan, you know, work out one way or another and hope that it works out. So we'll see how it goes. I'm enjoying myself, which is, I guess, the main thing at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, the main thing is keeping it enjoyable for yourself, for sure. Yeah, keep it fun, even though it's kind of like your passion is turning into a little bit of work with doing the videos and things. Like if you keep that enjoyment and all of that, you'll be good to go. So along with that, I wanted to ask you about your aspirations as far as you as an artist yourself. You're toying around with comic art and things. Is that the direction you're leaning towards as far as where your artistic journey takes you?
I think definitely in terms of art, I feel like I've done a lot of animations in my life. I'm sort of very bored of sitting in After Effects and just waiting for the render to be done. Whereas,
it's like pulling teeth waiting for those renders.
yeah. And then it renders out and there's a black frame or the voice is slightly out of sync and you're back to the beginning. So yeah, I'm just absolutely loving this journey of discovering like my comic art voice, I guess, and just learning and studying. It's just amazing because I feel like my brain is literally just going whoosh every time I pick up a comic book. So there's so much to learn, and every day is amazing when that's the case.
Do you see yourself pursuing this as a career? As far as like, do you see yourself putting a portfolio together and potentially, submitting work to the big companies? Or do you think more you might lean towards doing something creator owned to where you have a little bit more control? Or do you just want to keep it fun and do the instructional stuff and kind of see where that takes you?
I think I'm going to say for, July of 2024, I probably don't want to do the whole put together a portfolio and go to the big comic book people because I just don't feel like I'm anywhere near good enough for that. And it will take me a long time to get to that point. And
Right.
I've spent like nearly 10 years of people, oh, I don't like that part, so can you just move it a little bit to the left? Or, sort of having no creative direction. Whereas now I feel completely allowed, the only limit is my ability and what I know and how I can do it. So I feel like for right now, I'm getting an absolute kick out of teaching like these videos and see where that can go. And then maybe down the line when I feel like I've got a good enough grasp on this entirely new world, then probably some sort of creator owned. But that's a while away for me.
Do you have some ideas in the back of your brain?
Yeah, I've always had this one idea.
Don't give it away. Someone will steal it.
Yeah.
Be very vague.
Yeah, it's a Western, but instead of featuring a cowboy, it features a cowgirl. So it's
Okay.
There's probably as vague can be because anybody can make
a little bit of a twist on the genre.
Cowgirl.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be my dream. I love anything to do with sci-fi, anything to do with westerns. I'm there. So that would be right up my street.
Did you ever watch that movie Cowboys versus Aliens?
Yes, I did.
Because that's actually from a comic. I believe that's actually from a comic. Yeah.
Oh, well,
I'm gonna have to fact check myself when we get off of here, but I'm pretty sure that came from a comic book.
Well, that's going to be going right to the top of my reading list if it is, because there's nothing better than westerns, and especially if it's got some sci-fi elements. I'm
got
there.
Western with aliens. Come on.
Yeah, I'm there. I'm so there. So yeah, that's the plan, I think.
Nice. So you're teaching others and you're learning through your journey of teaching others, which I think is really neat. What's the biggest advice you would give? And you're gonna say draw circles and cubes and cylinders, but what's the biggest advice you could give somebody who's just starting to get into comic art? Like, if you could give them your like top 2 things they should be focused on in the beginning, what would those be?
Oof. I would say don't ever forget the basics. So don't forget your cubes, tubes, and circles. And the second part I would say is if you find something that you like, ask yourself why. Like, what is it about that I like? And same for if you don't like something. If you don't like an artist, why is it that you don't like that piece of work? Because those answers will give you a whole like journey for your brain. of learning.
I like it. That's great advice. Do you have, like, if you were going to recommend somebody instructional books and things, do you have some standout instructional books or videos? I mean, David Finch, obviously, his YouTube channel is one of the ultimate resources. Do you have any other like books or artists that have YouTube channels that you would recommend to people?
Oh, that's a good one. I know Proco has a lot of like just general really good art advice, but
Yeah,
I think
and
everybody knows about Proco.
their Marvel, their paid Marvel instructional series is crazy. Like there's so much good content in that. It's like they keep uploading. I think they finally finished it, like uploading all the videos, but it's huge now. There's so many. I'm happy I purchased that. I'm wading my way through it. It takes all the way from, most basic, coming up with an idea, storytelling, camera angles, anatomy, like, and they have like some of the top artists teaching it. So it's really, really well done. So yeah, definitely Proco. Who else do we got from there?
I'm really, really bad at colouring. So my favourite sort of colouring person to go to is a guy called the Lighting Mentor. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Okay. I don't know if I've heard of that one.
So he was a sort of light designer for Pixar and Disney and places like that. And the way that he describes how you go about colouring and lighting your scenes just was totally just clicked in my brain immediately. He basically says, when you go to colour a scene, think about the light that is in that scene first and treat the local colours, so skin tones, hair, t-shirts. Don't think about that. Just think about the light and draw that in first, because the light affects the local colours massively,
Right.
if that makes sense. So
yeah, with bounce light and everything else. Yeah.
Yeah, so he basically says, like, the light that is in the scene affects the colour of the local colour. So skin tones may look purple, but we know skin tones aren't purple in real life. They're, sort of pinky, beigey. So that just sort of like clicked into place for me. I was like, whoa, that's wild. So I would say to check out the Lighten Mentor. He's really good.
Awesome. I'm going to have to add him to my list. Have you ever checked out Richard Friend's YouTube channel?
Yes, he's got tons of videos. Tons. And I know he
his
does like
Patreon. His Patreon is amazing too. There's like a ton more videos that aren't on YouTube that are on there. I think he's like over 800 videos on his Patreon.
That's a lot of videos.
See, I'm giving you another one when you're ready to binge.
Yeah.
Richard Friend is amazing. I've actually done a few art lessons with him where he's critiqued my work and done drawovers and sent me videos helping me out. He part of his Patreon, one of the tiers, you could get like a monthly critique or whatever, and very helpful. He's very good, just like you, very good at breaking things down and explaining.
Yeah, that's really cool. I will definitely check out. I definitely subscribed, but I don't think I'm part of his Patreon, so I'll have a look at that as well.
Yeah, his Patreon, highly recommend. Yeah, phenomenal stuff on there. And you want to talk about like going on and watching live streams, like he's got a ton of live streams that you could spend all day and several in the next 12 months watching for sure.
Nice. Well, that's where I'll be. That's me sorted for the next year.
Yeah, along with all the other things people are constantly recommending to you, right?
Yeah, it's great though, because I'm never ever going to be bored again. That's the way I see it.
Now, what's the art scene? I'm assuming well, you said you're British, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Like are you in England?
Yes.
Okay. So what's the comic art scene like in England? Like talking to people, in different areas of the world. I actually had a artist named Erica D'Urso on here the other day, and she was in Italy. So, and she was telling me, like, in Italy, like, art, like comic art, people don't see the value in it like they do here in the States. So here in the US, like comic conventions are huge. Like people are willing to pay a ridiculous amount of money for original art and things. And she said there, like if she goes to a convention there, she has to like drop her prices like to the point where it doesn't even make sense to go to the con because people just don't pay like they do here. They just don't see the value in it. So she was saying that it's a different, like maybe it's a cultural thing, but do you see any of that there, or is like comics and comic art like highly valued and respected there similarly to here in the US?
That's a good question. I'm not entirely sure because I'm like baby faced to this whole world.
Right.
But I do know that anime and manga are pretty big. Like we do have sort of local comic cons and stuff in the big cities, and I think it's mostly sort of TV shows and mainly anime and manga people that go there rather than comics specifically, but I could be totally wrong.
What I found interesting, what there was this weird contrast because she told me that about the art not being really valued, but then there are several actual comic art schools in Italy with like really great comic artists instructing the classes. And like you can actually go to these comic book art schools. She said there's one in Rome. There's several different ones that she attended. And so I'm like, that kind of glitched my brain out a little bit. And I'm like, well, it seems like if you were to have a school like promoting it and teaching people it, like it didn't make sense to me why it wasn't valued as much, Do you guys have any comic art schools there that you're aware of?
And I know that at my university there was a comic course, but I'm pretty sure it was cancelled, I think in my second year. So we're talking like 14 years ago. There was something up north in England, but whether it's still there, I don't know. But I think in general, like people don't really read comics as much over here. It does seem to be, at least from the analytics on my YouTube channel, it seems to be mostly the US and Canada.
You get a lot of US traffic on your site, on your channel.
Yeah, so it's mostly the US and then Canada, and then bizarrely Brazil is somehow the third.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have a lot of really good comic artists in Brazil. Yeah, there's quite a few that come out of there. So I'm wondering if maybe it isn't a little more, I don't know if respected is the right word, or maybe it's more popular there, because I know several, like Joe Bennett is a really amazing Brazilian artist. Like he did a long run on the Hulk and stuff, and Mike Deodato Jr. Okay. He's another one that did a ton of work for Marvel and DC over the years. And so, yeah, I think maybe over there it might be a little more popular and maybe promoted a little bit more or something.
Yeah, I'm just happy that it's still booming, or at least it seems to be sort of still going, especially if it's just in the US. Like, if we can make it more popular, then we can sell more books, get more art, is the way I see it.
Definitely, yeah. You promote people, and your channel is doing a great job of getting eyes on artwork that maybe they haven't seen, because we all assume, those of us who have been around this for a long time, like, oh, everybody knows Jim Lee, everybody knows Joe Mad, but that's not the case. Like a lot of the younger people coming up, I find they don't know who these artists are, and you're like, man, that guy's a legend. You have to know who that is, but they're caught up on whoever the most recent person is.
Yeah, I found that people typically either know like one or two like legends and then just go straight to the modern. They sort of skip out this middle part, so they sort of end up missing out on the Joe Mads, and they don't realize that Mark Silvestri did more than X-Men and things like that. So
right,
yeah, I try not to sort of pigeonhole myself to any sort of era. I'm just happy to read everything.
Yeah, and a lot of these people aren't currently producing work or haven't produced work for many, many years aside from Silvestri. Silvestri did that Batman Deadly Duo thing with Batman and the Joker, which is phenomenal.
Yes.
Like, that's insane, the rendering he did on that and everything. And it took him I think he had worked on that book for like almost 10 years or more.
I mean, looking at the artwork, it makes sense.
Yeah.
That is a lot of lines. So,
yeah. So it was
sense.
like a passion project of his. And I know Rob Liefeld has an amazing podcast. It's really fun to listen to. A lot of inside information about the comic industry and everything. And when that was coming out, he's a huge Silvestri fan. And he said that Mark had shown him like pages from that, like at least 8 or 10 years ago. It's like, here's what I'm working on. And now it just came out, not too long ago, and just blew everybody away. And I think definitely made some people aware of Mark who maybe didn't know who he was, people from the newer generation of comic fans and everything.
Yeah. It's a shame, really, that they are really just sort of discovering these people who paved the way for everybody else. But I'm just happy that people are now discovering him rather than not ever discovering his work. So yeah, I'm just very lucky that I discovered him through David's videos where he would mention him in basically every other sentence. So I was like, I need to check out this Mark Silvestri guy. He sounds really good.
Yeah, he taught David a lot, and when David was working over there for Top Cow and everything. So yeah, he's a huge, he's considered one of the masters for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Is there any artists that you like from the modern era that you would say are
I have a few. So modern era, I really like Jorge Jimenez.
Oh yes.
Yeah, his stuff is phenomenal. The stuff he's done on Batman and everything. And, his work's 100% digital. Like, he does everything digitally. A lot more artists now are doing their whole workflow digitally. But I guess there's this weird thing where you can kind of see, you can tell right out the gate something's digital. And then there's other artists that hide it a little bit more. I think he kind of walks that line. But he does so many cool effects and things with his work. Like, I love his stuff. Trying to think, there's a artist named Jeff Shaw, who he's phenomenal, and I don't know why more people don't know about him, but he's insanely talented, and he's done a lot of work for Marvel. He's done a lot of covers. He's done some books for them, but he's done a lot of independent stuff for Image and stuff. There's a series he did called The Paybacks, which is Donnie Cates was the writer, who's done a lot of really cool stuff, and Jeff Shaw did the art on that, and that's phenomenal. There's a few other books with Image that they did together, so same team, that you kind of find out that they're connected. You learn they're within the same world as each other.
Nice.
Yeah. And there's another book, couldn't recommend more. It's called God Country. So that's another one that they did together.
Oh, okay. I think I've heard of God Country somewhere on the internet grapevine.
Yeah. Yeah, and that one actually I think it got picked up for either a series or a movie that's in production. Yeah, so I think more people are going to be learning about that one soon. But that's just crazy good creator-owned story, amazing artwork and everything. So Yeah, I have too many to count. Like Ryan Otley's still my favorite. So anything he does, I follow. I talked to him. He was actually here in Washington State. There's a convention called Washington SummerCon. That was 3 or 4 weeks ago, and he was here. And I asked him. I said, "You probably can't say what you're working on, like what your next thing is." But he told me it's creator owned. That's all he could tell
Ooh.
me. It's like his own creator owned book that he's working on.
Ooh. That sounds good.
So yeah, so I'm super excited to see what that's all about, because anything that comes from that guy's mind is probably going to be pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm there to check it out as well. That sounds great. Have you seen
So,
any of
oh,
the
go ahead.
have you seen any of the, is it Ghost Machine? That sort of new
Ghost
world?
Machine stuff is, yeah, I like all the artists on there. I'm a huge Gary Frank fan. Yeah,
Same.
his work is amazing. Brian Hitch, like he's another underappreciated artist that's been around for a very long time. Francis Manipoul's on there, and the one that I'm really looking forward to that they're teasing at San Diego Comic-Con is Ivan Rice is doing a kind of a horror book, which is interesting because he's always done superhero stuff. Yeah, so I'm definitely on the Ghost Machine bandwagon. I was around when Image first started. Like, I worked for a comic book shop here that Todd McFarlane co-owned with his brother-in-law, and people that listen to the podcast will be sick of me telling this story because I'm sure I've told it more than once. But like, I would get to hang out with the artists when they would come to the shop and do signings and things, and so I was kind of around during that prime Image time and everything. And I can say that this whole Ghost Machine thing is giving me the same vibes. Like, it's the first time I've like really been excited about this whole new like universe and things that they're coming up with.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I wasn't around for the Image to see it happen, but yeah, this is exciting. I feel like something is bubbling and it's getting bigger and bigger. And
Yeah.
like you said, the artwork that is coming out is amazing, and especially it's, I can't remember what it's called. Something Town. Ivan Rice's Something Town. I can't remember the horror
Oh
comic.
yeah. Yeah,
It,
the horror
it's
one, yeah.
it's gonna be so good. Like, I've seen the teasers that he's put out on his Instagram, and it looks amazing. It looks awesome.
Yeah. I'm so jealous of the people that are getting to go to San Diego Comic Con this year, because he's going to be giving out ash cans, like black and white teaser previews of that book.
Ooh.
I'm like, oh man, I might end up going on eBay and buying one. I've done that before. Somebody goes on there and marks it up a bunch and puts it on eBay after they grab it. I'm like, dang it, am I going to do that again? Probably.
Well, is it cheaper than a flight in a hotel? Then
100%.
yeah, then that's the way I would justify it.
Yeah. Have you ever gone to any comic book conventions? Is that something that you do or that you would like to do?
I've never been to one, and I would absolutely love to go to one because I feel like I'd be around my people, people that understand,
Yes.
my love and my passion for this. So I'm hoping to go to one. I just need to sort of figure out which one to go to and just go. I'm excited.
Yeah, I find that like everybody's so nice. Like, you go to these comic book conventions, like maybe it's something to do with being similarly minded and appreciating the same things, but like in my experience, I've gone to a lot of different conventions, and it's just fun to be around the people. Like, everybody's wanting to talk about their passions and the things that they like. And even the artists, in my experience, are like very approachable, and you can ask them questions and learn from them and watch them draw their commissions and things. It's just such a wonderful experience.
Yeah, I'd love to sort of, like say, just watch them work, because I've only ever
Yeah.
seen, videos of people online draw, but to actually watch somebody that you have watched and followed their work and see them do it in front of you, that would be very cool. To be able to see what sort of techniques that you thought they did, but they didn't actually do that anyway.
Yes. Yeah. And something about, just watching people draw traditionally, because so much is digital nowadays. So getting to see them actually put pen to paper and everything, it's really cool. Do you work at all traditional, or are you strictly all digital these days?
I've sort of flipped it on its head. So obviously when I was in animation, that was 100% digital. So, and before that, when I was just sort of doing art on my own, it was always digital. But now, I don't really like it, if that makes sense. Unless it's coloring, because then I can control Z the whole
Yeah. Yeah, it
out of
helps a
everything.
lot. Yeah.
But yeah,
Inking too, like inking can be a little, I think inking is daunting, because just when you're doing it traditionally, the permanent feeling of it, even though you have white out, you can correct and everything. But yeah, it always scares me. Like I'm inking that Hulk piece behind me, and I'm like always like every line, I'm trying to be so careful, but which is what they tell you not to do. Like you're actually supposed to move more quickly and stay loose. But getting to that point for me is very difficult, because I'm like, it's so permanent. I don't want to mess it up. I love how the drawing turned out. Now I don't want to mess it up when I'm inking it.
yeah, I think that's sort of one drawback with traditional is it's sort of a bit permanent, but I take the mantra of, well, I've drawn it once. If I have to draw it again, I'll just get more learning out of it. So
yeah,
that's sort of where I'm at. It doesn't mean that I don't swear and curse when I totally muck something up. But,
Do you struggle at all with perfectionism?
I think I do. If I decide that I'm going to sit down and I'm going to create a piece, do you know what I mean? I'm like, right, this has got to be amazing, right? But I shouldn't really think like that. I should just think, well, it's a piece of paper. If the piece of paper ends up looking good, then great. But if it doesn't, I can just try again, But
yeah,
so that's why I really enjoy just studying a lot. But then I end up doing so much studying that I then don't actually create a final thing to show somebody. It's just my sketchbook is full of like notes and bits of doodles of stuff that I've studied. And
see, I'm the same way. My wife gives me a hard time because I don't have a lot of finished pieces, and she always sees me doing anatomy studies and sketches and like all, we've been together for coming up on, since we started dating, will be 23 years this year. So yeah, September will be 23 years, and she's like, the whole time together I haven't seen you finish hardly anything. I'm like, I know, I'm trying to perfect my craft. I'm trying to get better.
23 years, that's a long time.
It is. Yeah. It's thank you. Yeah, it's been great. I couldn't be happier. And it's good that she stays on top of me with that, because she's like, you got to push yourself, you need to finish it, learn from the mistakes, and make the next piece better. And I totally get that, but it's like easier said than done for me, because I do get in that perfectionist mode, and I'll get like that far into that drawing back behind me, and then I'll see like all the things I could do better now with what I learned in the process, and then I want to start over instead of finishing it and then moving on and applying those things to the next piece. So that's my difficulty. That's probably my biggest struggle with my artwork, is just not allowing myself to make the mistakes and finish it and learn from them and apply them to the next, not make those mistakes in the next piece.
Yeah, I am very much the same. I struggle just like you do. I'm like, yeah, but I don't like that one thing. So will I finish it? Will I not? I'll just move on to something else and find some dopamine elsewhere. So
yeah, it's weird how precious it becomes to us. It's like you said, it's just a piece of paper. I think art is so personal though. And especially if it's something that we think we might show to somebody else or we might post online, I think that gets, a little bit of that trepidation because you're like, oh, I want to put my best impression of myself out there. So I probably just psychoanalyzed what holds me back on it.
We've figured out the problem between us.
Now we just have to fix it, right?
Exactly. I think if we flip it on its head and we create the work, put it out there, but then think of it as we're just sharing our journey. That's probably the way that we should think about it.
Yeah, and showing everybody else that, we're at this point in our journey, and maybe to us that's not great, but somebody who's just starting, they look at that, they're like, I could never do that, and we think it's garbage, and we're like, what? But they're taking inspiration in seeing how many levels it is above them and wanting to try to get there. So I think we all kind of need to, take it with that in the back of our brain to where it could be helping somebody else out there who is looking at it and aspiring to it. We don't think of it that way because we can only see the flaws, right?
Exactly. When I sort of rediscovered sort of art and drawing, I did this thing every week where I took the first page of my sketchbook that I bought in January for rediscover art. I took that first page, and every week I drew the same character, if that makes sense. So did it for about, I think, 7 or 8 weeks. I drew the same character, but you could see the progression. So that's what I would sort of
That's cool.
recommend to anybody, that if you want to see progression, challenge yourself to draw the same character every week, but learn something every week and then adapt it for the next version. It's just wild to see sort of the progression and how things have changed and
how everything evolves.
So
that's awesome. No, that's great advice.
Yeah, that's what I would do. And it's a helpful reminder for myself to actually sort of finish something, because only then you're going to see that progression like I did.
Exactly. Well, to kind of close things out, I've been saving this question I had in the back of my brain for the end here. So the channel is Learn Comics with Pancake.
Mm-hmm.
Where did Pancake come from? I have to know.
Okay. So I'm a huge geek. I play video games and have done since I could hold a controller, basically.
You and me both.
Yeah. So there's a game called Life is Strange. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I don't know that I've heard of that one.
It's sort of a bit indie. It's sort of very chill, but it's got like a really great storyline to it.
Okay.
And basically, one of the characters, her dad died in a car crash before the games began, right? And that's part of like her character and stuff. And in the prequel game, there's these characters that are, asking her about her dad. And she's like, oh, well, he, like the people are like, oh, he must have been very responsible. He must have been a very responsible parent to sort of bring you up like this.
Right.
And she just comes out with, yeah, but then he became a really responsible pancake.
Okay.
And it stuck with me. So when sort of the prequels were coming out and I was on Tumblr and totally fangirling, I was like, responsible pancake. That's what I should be. And then it became super responsible pancake, so that I didn't just totally rip it off. And then fast forward, I don't know, 8-9 years later, I came to this YouTube channel and I was like, I'm just going to take my Instagram handle and just shorten it a little bit and put comics in there. So it became Learn Comics with Pancake. And everybody just calls me Pancake now. So I've just,
there you go.
Just living the pancake life.
It stuck.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. I've had such a great time hanging out with you today. I understand it's in the evening there. I don't want to keep you too long. I want to give you a chance to let everybody know where they can find you online, the best places to follow you and everything. So the stage is yours to get the word out to everybody.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you just type in Google, learn comics with Pancake, my YouTube channel will come up, and probably my Instagram, which I think is Super Responsible Pancake.
Yep.
I don't post too much art in there because most of my time is spent making videos because that's my jam. So if there's artists that people want to tell me about because I should read them, then let me know.
Awesome. Well, thank you for spending a little bit of time with me today, and I hope to have you on again in the future if you'd come on. That would be awesome.
Yeah, anytime.
Maybe we can do like a breakdown of an artist together or something on here. Some kind of collaboration. That might be fun.
That would be awesome. I'd be so down for that.
Okay, for sure. I'm gonna hold you to that.
Yep, it's all recorded. It's all on the screen. So
got your word. I've got your word.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I'm gonna hit the outro. Emily, thank you again. You have a great rest of your evening. Hang out with me for a moment. Here's the outro, everybody. Keep it nerdy.